Maya's hands trembled as she pushed open the glass doors of Rosewood Diner, the upscale restaurant where hope felt as fragile as the crystal chandeliers hanging overhead. At 17, she carried the weight of a family's survival on her shoulders, desperation etched in every line of her face. The rain had soaked through her worn jacket during the 6-block walk from the bus stop, and her sneakers squeaked against the pristine marble floor as she stepped inside. 3 days earlier, Maya had been just another high school senior worrying about prom dresses and college applications. Then Marcus collapsed during recess at Roosevelt Elementary, his small body convulsing as teachers frantically called 911. The diagnosis hit their family like a freight train: severe pneumonia, complicated by an underlying immune deficiency that doctors hadn't caught earlier. Their mother, Sarah Johnson, worked 3 jobs just to keep their small apartment in the Riverside district. A night shift at the textile factory, morning hours cleaning office buildings downtown, and afternoon babysitting for neighbors. Even with all that work, health insurance remained a luxury they couldn't afford. When Maya's father left 2 years ago, he took any hope of financial stability with him. Maya clutched the crumpled $20 bill in her pocket, literally their family's last money, after paying for Marcus's emergency room visit. She'd already sold her laptop, her few pieces of jewelry, and even her prom dress that she'd been saving for months to buy. The hospital social worker had been kind but firm. Without immediate payment, Marcus would be transferred to the overcrowded county hospital, where wait times could mean the difference between recovery and tragedy. The past 3 days had been a blur of rejection. Maya had walked from restaurant to restaurant, store to store, begging for any kind of work. Her age worked against her. Most places required 18-year-old employees. Her lack of experience was another barrier. But the biggest obstacle was something she couldn't change: the way people looked at her. A young black girl from the poor side of town, and immediately dismissed her as unworthy of their time. At Morrison's Electronics, the manager took one look at her and said they weren't hiring, even though the "Help Wanted" sign hung prominently in the window. At Bella's boutique, the owner followed her around the store as if she might steal something before asking her to leave. At Tony's Pizza, she wasn't even allowed through the front door. Each rejection felt like another nail in Marcus's coffin. Maya remembered his weak voice that morning when she visited the hospital before school. "Maya, am I going to die like the goldfish did?" The innocence in his question broke her heart into a million pieces. Marcus still believed in superheroes and magic, still thought his big sister could fix anything. She couldn't bear to let him down. Rosewood Diner represented Maya's final chance before returning to the hospital empty-handed. She'd passed by the elegant restaurant countless times, but never imagined setting foot inside. The clientele dressed in suits and designer dresses, the kind of people who drove cars that cost more than her family's annual income. She approached the gleaming reception desk, where a blonde hostess named Brittany looked her up and down with obvious disdain. Maya's second-hand clothes and worn sneakers stood out starkly against the restaurant's marble floors and gold-trimmed walls. The hostess's perfectly manicured nails tapped impatiently against her podium as Maya gathered courage to speak. "Excuse me," Maya whispered, her voice barely audible above the soft jazz music floating through the dining room. "I need to speak with someone about work." Brittany's eyes narrowed, taking in Maya's damp clothing and desperate expression. "We're not hiring," she said curtly, not even bothering to check any paperwork or ask about Maya's qualifications. "And even if we were, we have standards here. This is a fine dining establishment, not a charity case." Maya's heart sank, but Marcus's face flashed in her mind. Pale and small against the hospital's white sheets, she pressed on, her voice stronger now. "Please, I'll do anything. Wash dishes, clean tables, sweep floors, take out trash. My little brother is sick and we need—" I said no. Brittany's voice cut through the air like a blade, loud enough that several nearby diners turned to stare. "You need to leave before you disturb our customers. Security will escort you out if necessary." Maya felt her cheeks burn with humiliation as conversations quieted and all eyes turned toward her. She wanted to disappear, to run back into the rain and never show her face here again. But then she thought about Marcus asking if he was going to die, about her mother working herself to exhaustion, about being the only person who could save her family. Through her tears, Maya spotted a waiter balancing multiple plates with practiced ease. He moved through the dining room with quiet confidence, stopping to chat briefly with customers, ensuring everyone felt welcomed and cared for. He was a tall man in his 30s, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and greying temples that suggested wisdom earned through experience. His name tag read James Morrison. Something about his demeanor gave Maya hope. While other staff members averted their eyes when she looked their way, James made brief eye contact and nodded politely. When he finished serving his table, Maya gathered every ounce of courage she had left and approached him. "Sir, please," she began, her voice shaking. "I know this looks bad, and I know I don't belong here, but I'm desperate. My 8-year-old brother Marcus has pneumonia, and it's getting worse. The hospital won't continue his treatment without payment, and I've been everywhere looking for work. I'll work for free if I have to. I'll clean bathrooms, do dishes, anything." James paused, setting down his empty tray on a nearby service station. The entire dining room seemed to quiet as nearby customers strained to listen. Maya noticed an elderly woman at table 6 leaning forward, her hand pressed to her heart. A businessman at the bar had stopped mid-conversation with his colleague. Even the kitchen staff had begun gathering near the service window. Maya's voice cracked as she continued, desperation pouring out in a flood of words. "I've been to 12 places today. Everyone says no because I'm 17, or I don't have experience, or—" She gestured helplessly at her appearance. "But I'm smart and I'm hard-working, and I'll do anything to save my brother. He's all I have." James studied Maya's face intently, seeing something that others had missed all day. "What's your brother's name?" he asked gently, his voice carrying a warmth that Maya hadn't heard since this nightmare began. "Marcus," she whispered, surprised by the personal question. "Marcus Johnson. He's at St. Mary's Hospital, room 314. He loves dinosaurs and wants to be a paleontologist when he grows up. He can name every dinosaur that ever existed and knows all their scientific names. He's so smart and funny," and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "If he grows up. The doctors say without proper treatment, the infection could spread to his brain or heart." James was quiet for a long moment, his expression growing distant, as if memories were surfacing that he'd tried to keep buried. Then he did something that shocked everyone watching. He pulled out his phone and made a call right there in the middle of the busy restaurant. "Dr. Patterson, this is James Morrison. I need you to check on a patient for me. Marcus Johnson in room 314. "Yes, I'll hold." Maya's eyes widened in disbelief. "How do you know Dr. Patterson?" James's expression grew heavy with old grief. 5 years ago, my daughter Emma was in that same hospital. Same doctor, same ward." His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "She had acute lymphoblastic leukemia. She was 8 years old, just like your brother." The restaurant had gone completely silent now. Even the kitchen staff had emerged to listen, and Maya could see tears already forming in several eyes throughout the dining room. "Dr. Patterson?" James continued into the phone, his voice professional despite the emotion underneath. "What's the total amount needed for Marcus Johnson's immediate treatment and the next phase of care?" "I understand. Yes, I'll handle it immediately. Please make sure he gets whatever he needs. Transfer him to the private wing if necessary. No, don't worry about authorization. I'll be there within the hour to handle the paperwork personally." Maya's legs nearly gave out. She grabbed the edge of a nearby table for support. "Sir, I can't let you—" "My Emma was 8 too," James said, pocketing his phone. His eyes glistened with unshed tears. "She had the same dreams as your brother. She wanted to discover new dinosaur species, specifically marine reptiles from the Jurassic period. She could pronounce Ophthalmosaurus better than most adults." He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "I couldn't save her, but maybe I can save him." By now, every person in the restaurant was watching with tears streaming down their faces. The elegant atmosphere had transformed into something raw and beautiful. A room full of strangers, connected by the universal experience of love and loss. An elderly woman at table 6 stood up, her Chanel purse clutched in her arthritic hands. She moved slowly but purposefully toward Maya, her eyes bright with determination. "Young lady, what's your full name?" she asked in a voice that carried decades of authority. "Maya Johnson," she managed to say through her sobs. The woman approached, reaching into her purse with deliberate care. "I'm Margaret Chen. I lost my grandson David to brain cancer last year. He was 9 years old. She pulled out her wallet, removing not just bills but also business cards and a checkbook. Your love for your brother, the way you're fighting for him. It reminds me of how fiercely I loved David, how far I would have gone to save him. Margaret pressed several $100 bills into Maya's trembling hands, then wrote out a check for an amount that made Maya gasp. This is from David's college fund. He would have wanted it to help another child. A businessman at the bar, who had been nursing a scotch and reviewing contracts, called out across the restaurant, "Young lady, I want to help too. I'm Robert Martinez, CEO of Martinez Medical Supply. My company provides equipment to hospitals throughout the state." He stood up, pulling out his phone. "I'm going to make sure your brother has access to the latest respiratory therapy equipment, and I'll personally oversee his care." One by one, customers throughout the restaurant began standing up, creating a movement that rippled through the dining room like a wave. The construction worker in the corner booth, still dusty from his shift, emptied his entire wallet, 3 weeks' worth of tip money he'd been saving for his daughter's birthday present. "I got a little girl too," he said gruffly, trying to hide his emotion. "Name's Carmen. She's 6. Can't imagine what you're going through." A young couple celebrating their anniversary handed over the money they'd brought for dinner and a movie afterward. The woman, barely older than Maya, pressed the cash into her hands. "We were celebrating because I just beat breast cancer," she whispered. "We know what it's like to fight for your life." Even Brittany, the hostess who had initially dismissed Maya so coldly, approached with tears streaming down her perfectly made-up face. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, pressing her tip money from the evening into Maya's hands. "I have a little brother too. I was wrong. I was so wrong." But James wasn't finished. As the crowd of generous strangers continued to surround Maya with support and donations, he cleared his throat to address the room. "Maya, I want you to know something else," he said, his voice carrying across the now quiet restaurant. "I don't just work here. I own this restaurant." Maya's mouth fell open. What? "I started as a busboy here 15 years ago, just like you're trying to start tonight. I was 19, working 3 jobs to pay for community college, sleeping in my car some nights because I couldn't afford rent." His voice grew stronger as he shared his story with the room. "When Emma got sick 3 years later, I couldn't afford her treatment either. I was a single father. Her mother had left when Emma was a baby. I had nothing." The restaurant was so quiet that Maya could hear the soft jazz music that had been playing all evening, suddenly noticing how beautiful and melancholy it sounded. "The community rallied around us, just like they're rallying around you now. Customers from this very restaurant, co-workers, even strangers who heard our story, they gave us hope when hope seemed impossible." James paused, his voice thick with emotion. "After Emma passed, I used the money people had donated, the money that couldn't save her, to buy this restaurant from the previous owner who was retiring. I renamed it Rosewood Diner, after Emma's favorite place to have tea parties with her stuffed animals." Maya was crying too hard to speak, overwhelmed by the generosity and the tragic beauty of James's story. "And now," James continued, "I'd like to offer you something Emma would have wanted you to have. A job, not just for tonight but for as long as you need it. Full-time hours with benefits, including health insurance for your entire family. You'll start at $15 an hour, and I'll work around your school schedule so you can graduate." The restaurant erupted in applause and cheers as Maya collapsed into James's arms, sobbing with relief and gratitude. The sound was thunderous, a celebration of human kindness that seemed to shake the very foundations of the building. But the evening's surprises weren't over yet. 20 minutes later, Dr. Patterson himself walked through the restaurant's front doors, still wearing his hospital scrubs. He had left St. Mary's specifically to meet Maya, something unprecedented in his 20-year career. "Maya Johnson?" he asked, scanning the crowd of tear-streaked faces until he found her. "Yes, sir," Maya managed, her voice hoarse from crying. Dr. Patterson's face broke into the biggest smile Maya had seen all week. "I wanted to tell you in person. About 10 minutes after James called, something remarkable happened. Your brother's fever broke completely. The new antibiotic protocol we started this morning is working even better than we hoped." Maya grabbed James's arm for support. "Is he okay?" "More than okay. His lung function has improved dramatically, and his white cell count is normalizing. With the donations from tonight, We can not only complete his current treatment, but also address the underlying immune deficiency that made him susceptible to severe infections in the first place. Dr. Patterson's eyes sparkled with professional satisfaction. And he's been asking for his big sister non-stop. Can I see him? Maya asked, barely daring to hope. James already called you a cab, Dr. Patterson replied, gesturing toward the window where a taxi waited with its hazard lights blinking. Marcus is awake and feeling well enough to complain about hospital food, which is always a good sign. As Maya gathered the overwhelming amount of money, business cards and contact information from her new friends throughout the restaurant, she turned back to James one more time. Why? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Why did you help me when no one else would? Why did you see something in me that 12 other people missed today? James was quiet for a moment, then reached into his wallet and pulled out a small worn photograph. It showed a beautiful little girl with bright brown eyes, pigtails tied with dinosaur-themed ribbons, and a gap-toothed smile that could light up the world. She wore a t-shirt covered in various dinosaur species, and she was holding up a drawing of what appeared to be a triceratops. This is Emma, he said softly, and 5 years ago on her last day, she made me promise something. His voice broke slightly. She said, Daddy, promise me you'll help other kids like me. Promise me you'll be the person someone needs when they have nowhere else to turn. Promise me you'll look for the helpers and be a helper. He traced his daughter's face in the photograph with his finger. She said that Mr. Rogers once told kids to look for the helpers during scary times, but she wanted to make sure there would always be helpers to find. James looked up at Maya with eyes full of love and loss and hope. Tonight, through helping Marcus, Emma kept her promise to make the world a little better, and you gave me the chance to keep my promise to her. Maya hugged the photo gently to her chest before handing it back. I'll bring Marcus to meet you when he's better. He'd love to hear about Emma's dinosaur dreams. Maybe he can show you some of his drawings. I'd like that very much, James whispered. As Maya prepared to leave for the hospital, something extraordinary happened. The entire restaurant, staff and customers alike, gathered at the large front windows to wave goodbye. Margaret Chen had organized an impromptu collection of phone numbers and email addresses, creating an instant support network for Maya's family. Robert Martinez was already on the phone with St. Mary's administration, arranging for Marcus to receive the best possible care. The young cancer survivor had written down the name of her oncologist, offering to connect Maya with support groups for families dealing with serious illnesses. Even the construction worker, who had introduced himself as Miguel Santos, pressed a business card into Maya's hand. My crew does charity work on weekends, he said gruffly. If your family needs anything fixed around the house, you call me. As the taxi pulled away from Rosewood Diner, Maya looked back through the rear window at the glowing restaurant where her life had changed forever. Through the windows, she could see James hanging something on the wall near the entrance. She couldn't quite make it out, but it looked like a piece of paper. St. Mary's Hospital at night was a different world than during the day. The hallways were quieter, the lighting softer, but there was an undercurrent of hope that Maya hadn't felt during her previous visits. When the elevator doors opened on the pediatric wing, she could hear familiar laughter coming from room 314. Marcus was sitting up in bed, his color dramatically improved, showing Dr. Patterson a drawing he'd been working on. When he saw Maya in the doorway, his face lit up like Christmas morning. Maya, look, I drew you a dinosaur. He held up a surprisingly detailed sketch of what appeared to be a brontosaurus wearing a superhero cape. Dr. Patterson says I'm getting better, and he told me about the nice man who helped us. Is it true he has a little girl who loved dinosaurs too? Maya rushed to his bedside, hugging him carefully but tightly. For the first time in days, Marcus felt warm instead of burning with fever, and his breathing was clear and easy. Yes, baby, it's true. Clear and easy. Yes, baby, it's true. Her name was Emma, and she would have loved meeting you. Maya smoothed his hair, marveling at how different he looked already. And when you're all better, we're going to go meet him and tell him all about your dinosaur discoveries. Dr. Patterson smiled from the corner of the room. Marcus has been telling me about his theory that marine reptiles from the Cretaceous period might have had more advanced social structures than we previously thought. Pretty sophisticated thinking for an 8-year-old. That's my little paleontologist, Maya said, tears of joy replacing the tears of desperation she'd been shedding all day. Marcus Johnson walked into Rosewood Diner for the first time on a sunny Saturday morning, healthy and excited to meet the man who saved his life. He carried a large manila folder containing drawings he'd been working on during his recovery, pictures of dinosaurs, but also pictures of the people who had helped him. The restaurant was busy with the weekend brunch crowd, but James had reserved a special table by the window. When Marcus saw him, he ran over with the boundless energy of a completely healthy child. "Mr. James! Mr. James! I brought you pictures." Marcus climbed into his chair and immediately began spreading drawings across the table. "This one is Emma with angel wings, and she's discovering a new kind of flying dinosaur. And this one is you and Maya and me, and we're all paleontologists together." James's eyes filled with tears as he studied each drawing carefully. The artwork was remarkably detailed for an 8-year-old, but more than that, it was filled with hope and joy and love. "Marcus, these are incredible. Emma would have absolutely loved them." James picked up the drawing of Emma with angel wings. "She always said she wanted to discover a flying reptile that nobody had ever seen before. Maybe she did discover one in heaven," Marcus said with the matter-of-fact wisdom that children sometimes possess. "Maybe she's up there right now, finding all kinds of new dinosaurs and waiting to tell us about them someday." Maya watched the interaction with a heart so full she thought it might burst. In 3 weeks, her entire life had changed. She was excelling in her new job at Rosewood Diner, where she'd been promoted to assistant manager after showing exceptional skill with customer service and organization. The health insurance had covered not only Marcus's treatment, but also regular checkups for their entire family. Their mother, Sarah, had been able to quit one of her 3 jobs and was considering going back to school for nursing, something she'd dreamed about for years. The support network that had formed that magical night continued to check in regularly, creating an extended family that Maya never could have imagined. James stood up and walked to the front of the restaurant, where Maya now noticed a large framed display near the entrance. It contained Marcus's original drawing, the one of him and Maya standing next to James and Emma with angel wings, all of them surrounded by various dinosaur species. Below the drawing was a brass plaque that read, "The Emma Morrison Memorial Wing at St. Mary's Hospital where Hope lives, on established in memory of Emma Morrison and in honor of Marcus Johnson. Look for the helpers and be a helper." "Marcus," James said, returning to the table, "that drawing you made is now the first thing every person sees when they come into this restaurant. It reminds everyone who enters that miracles happen when people choose love over indifference." Marcus beamed with pride, then grew thoughtful. "Mr. James, do you think Emma knows that she helped save my life?" James looked up toward the ceiling, as if he could see through it to wherever Emma might be. "I think she knows, buddy. I think she's very proud of the helper she inspired." The story of that night had spread far beyond Rosewood Diner. Local news stations picked it up, then national media, and finally social media, where it went viral with millions of shares. But more importantly, it had inspired copycat acts of kindness throughout the city and beyond. Restaurants started hosting fundraisers for families in need. Hospitals reported increased donations and volunteer applications. Margaret Chen had established a scholarship fund for students from low-income families, naming it the Maya Johnson Scholarship for Young Helpers. Robert Martinez's medical supply company had created a program providing free equipment to children who couldn't afford it. 6 months later, Maya was accepted to 3 different universities with full scholarships, but she chose to attend the local community college while continuing to work at Rosewood Diner. She wanted to stay close to Marcus and to be part of the ongoing magic that happened there every day. The restaurant had become more than just a dining establishment. It was a beacon of hope in the community. James had formalized the charitable work, creating the Emma Morrison Foundation, which helped families facing medical crises. Maya served as the foundation's youth coordinator, using her experience to help other young people navigate desperate situations. Marcus, now completely healthy, visited the restaurant every Saturday for what they called dinosaur breakfast, time where he would share his latest research and drawings with James and anyone else who was interested. He had become something of a local celebrity, speaking at schools about both paleontology and the importance of community support. But perhaps most importantly, the relationship between James and Maya's family had evolved into something beautiful and lasting. James had become the father figure that Marcus had never really had, and Maya had found a mentor who believed in her potential when no one else would. On quiet Sunday evenings, after the restaurant closed, James, Maya, and Marcus would sit at the window table, looking through paleontology books and planning visits to natural history museums. James would tell stories about Emma's dreams and discoveries, while Marcus would share his latest theories about prehistoric life. "You know what Emma's favorite thing about dinosaurs was?" James said one evening as they flipped through pictures of fossil excavations. "What?" Marcus asked, leaning forward with interest. "She said they proved that amazing things could exist, even if most people never got to see them alive. She said fossils were like hope, evidence that incredible things are real even when they seem impossible." Maya looked around the restaurant, at the community of love that had grown from one desperate moment, at her brother's healthy, happy face, at the father figure who had saved them all. "She was right," Maya said softly. "The most incredible things often seem impossible until they happen." James smiled, looking up at Emma's photograph on the wall. Surrounded by Marcus's dinosaur drawings and letters from families the Foundation had helped. "And the best part," he said, "is that the story isn't over. Every day there are new opportunities to be helpers, new chances to create miracles for people who need them most." As they prepared to leave that evening, Marcus carefully placed his latest drawing on James's desk, a picture of a vast prehistoric landscape filled with dinosaurs of every species, and flying above them all, a little girl with angel wings and a paleontologist's hat, discovering wonders that no one had ever dreamed possible. The drawing was titled, "Emma's New Discovery, Hope Fossils, the rarest and most beautiful specimens of all." James hung it on the wall that night, right next to Emma's photograph, where it would inspire countless other stories of kindness, hope, and the extraordinary power of ordinary people choosing to be helpers in a world that desperately needs them. And somewhere, in the space between dreams and reality, between memory and hope, Emma Morrison smiled knowing that her promise was being kept every single day. Ready to be part of more incredible stories of hope and human kindness? Subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell, because real-life miracles happen every day when we choose to be helpers instead of bystanders. Your support helps us share these powerful stories that remind us all what it means to be human. Subscribe now and join our community of hope makers who believe that ordinary people can create extraordinary change.